We've got I think, one of the most interesting topics um, to cover today, and we're just going to scratch the surface a little bit. But it comes from a place where I met Dan. I'll show you, but sometimes it's hard to get it to come across. I don't know why it does that. But this is the book Dan wrote. It's called Cracking Heaven's Code, God's System for Abundant Restoring Abundant Health. And I want to read you just the first paragraph of his introduction. It says, your body has a language of its own. When God created your body, he programmed it with a secret code that operates your body much like a computer code operates a computer. This code runs every function in the body, in your body. If you want to transform your body and take hold of abundant health, you must learn the language of your body. And this is very personal to me because when I met Dan about 8 years ago, I was in a lot of pain. I had just been diagnosed with an incurable neck issue. And I was living in every day of my life starting out at pain 7 out of 10. It wasn't healthy. I mean, if I went to the doctor, my blood pressure would be off the chart, and they said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I'm in a lot of pain." So it was showing up in my sleep and in every facet of my life, and I could feel my health dissipating. I could feel the quality of my life dissipating. I could just feel so many things running away from me that I'd spent my whole life trying to work for. When my daughter was reading Cracking Heaven's Code, and she said, "Dad, every time I read it, I think about you. I think you need to go talk to them." And that's what I did. So made an appointment with him, went and sat in his office, and in Dan's wisdom, he looks at me and says, "You know God can heal you, don't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah. I've been to my pastor. Yeah, God can heal me." Then he really put me on the spot. He looked at me and said, "Do you believe it?" Whole different question. Took me to 10 o'clock that night to answer the question. But when I did, I was all in. I prayed about it all day. I thought about it all day. And when I answered that question, I said, "Okay, I'm gonna believe God at his word. I'm just gonna believe him." I'd already been frustrated with the diagnosis that I had an uncurable neck issue. And I couldn't bear the thought of spending the rest of my life with that diagnosis. But I started working out with Dan, and he customized things for me so that I could actually do something. And I was quite limited in a lot. But over time, um, we just kept working on it. And I had a hike coming up in May, which was a 100-mile hike here in Virginia. And I could only walk 1 mile in my neighborhood at this time, and I couldn't carry any weight. And that was it. That was a max. And out on the trail, I have to get 10 to 15 miles in a day and carry 30 pounds. So there was a lot between me and May that I had to step out and say, "Yes, God, I believe in you. I'm going to stand on your word." And on January 20th, we're working out. I've gone to a basketball game with my nephew, and it was over. They were breaking down, and then other people were setting up to play volleyball. And I noticed two gentlemen walking out on the court to do that, and I knew both of them. And one of them had helped baptize my 3 children. So I walked out, my neck was all cocked. I'm kind of looking at him, and they're going, "What's wrong with you?" I said, well, I got a little neck issue, but I was ready to talk. But they said, think we could pray for you? And I said, yeah. So they laid hands on me and prayed for me. And that was the end of January 20th. And I had to May, and I finally felt my first pain gone. And just between then and May, there was just steady little pain drops. And by the time my buddy come out here to hike with me, I told him I might make it a day, I might make it, who knows? I couldn't promise him anything. But we took out, and I remember we were 80 miles into the hike, and it's one of the more iconic places on the Appalachian Trail called McAfee Snag. If you look it up, it's beautiful, beautiful place. Little girl took a picture, and when I looked north after she took the picture, God just spoke to me and said, Sheldon, it's not about finishing this hike. You're going to hike the entire trail. And I got off that trail, and here I am 7 years later, and I've got 1,100 miles in. In 4 weeks, I'm heading to South Maine to do 110 miles. And my neck is better than before when it started. God just couldn't take me to where it was when it went south. He restored it in his abundance. And so that's how I got initiated again in cracking Heaven's Code. There's just so many things that he's just interpreted from God's word and just put it into some very manageable pieces that I was able to grasp a hold of and walk through. And it's been in the rearview mirror ever since then.
Yeah, I was just telling you earlier, the way this book started, I was cooking dinner one night and I heard on the inside, start writing Cracking Heaven's Code. And I'm like, okay, I don't have any idea what that is, but okay. And so I opened up on my computer a Word document and I wrote in the title. Something we teach in our program is we call it a memorial portion. Like, what's one small, you don't know what to do, you got something big or overwhelming. What's one small step that you can do? I know the title. I'm going to write the title in. And God just began to fill it. I don't know how else to describe it other than he just began to fill it. But I will say he had been preparing me for almost 20 years to write it. I just didn't know it. And so my background, I've spent over 20 years doing personal training, training people. I had my own gym business where Kelvin met me there. His daughter was a trainer at my gym. And so I had a number of trainers working for me. And I had spent several years just traveling all over the country, studying with some of the best health and fitness experts that I could find. And so I was pretty trained from a purely world's perspective on health and fitness. I was very trained. And one of the things I got into studying, one of my mentors was big into Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine. And they've got a whole system in there for how different colors, different flavors, different elements like that, how they impact the body, how they nourish different organ systems in the body. And so I had a pretty good understanding of that. But I was wrestling with it because I was seeing results with it. I was helping clients get healthier using some of those principles. But then at the time, I wasn't saved. I wasn't really walking with God at all. And I started developing a relationship with the Lord. And I came across a guy, I had started reading one chapter from the book of Proverbs every day. I'd been doing it for about a year. And that was really making some huge impacts in my life, just in so many ways. I was getting to know the Lord, really. I was developing a relationship with Him. And I came across a guy who was 113 years old, said he'd never been sick a day in his life. And he said, hey, all of my secrets are in the Bible. And so I said, you know what? I probably should read the rest of the book because I'd just been reading Proverbs only. And so I started reading from the front to the back, just reading it like a book. And I got so much out of it. And one of the things that I learned is I started writing my first book, which is called 7 Days with Jesus. And it was kind of one of those moments again where I felt like God prompted me to start writing 7 Days with Jesus. And I wasn't sure exactly what that was either. And 7 Days with Jesus is about the seven feast days in the Old Testament, things like Passover, unleavened bread, all those types of things. And when I started to study those feast days, God began to teach me about them. What I saw is God's got a pattern. He's got a pattern of how he does things. And what I started to see is that same pattern is in those seven feast days. It's in the 7 days of creation. It's in everything God does. He's got a pattern. And you see in the Old Testament, in the Bible, that the temple, at one point in the Old Testament, the temple of God had been destroyed. And it says they restored God's temple to its original design. And I felt like one of the things God began to show me is your body is my temple now. And we can restore it to its original design. We're going to use my pattern, my codes for how I do things to restore your body to its original design, the way it was intended to be. And so that was kind of the learning lesson. So when I started to see those seven feast days, I started to see God's pattern and I started to overlay that over what I had learned all those 20 years of training and studying. I mean, I was obsessed with it. I was studying it day and night for years. And then I took that same study and I put it into the Bible. Like I was just devouring the Bible, reading it over and over and over, studying. My wife was like, "You're studying it too much." She's like, "I don't know anybody who reads their Bible as much as you do. I've never seen anybody do what you're doing." It was foreign to her to do that. But I started to see these patterns and these connections and how God does things, how he orders things, how he sequences things. And then I don't know how else to describe it other than just he was gracious to me and showed me how some of these things fit together into what we have in the Cracking Heavens code book. I was telling Kelvin, I couldn't have figured some of that out on my own, I don't think. So, but that's how we got started. I don't know. Uh, it's been an interesting journey from that point on. But Kelvin came into the gym, and I would say up until that point, I had gotten started where Proverbs 13:22, when I started reading those Proverbs, it jumped out at me one day. It says, "A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children." And that verse really changed my life. It changed the whole trajectory of my life. I said, what do I want to leave for my kids and grandkids one day? And I want to leave them wisdom. I want to leave them teaching, training, lessons for just how to do life, how to succeed in all the different areas of life. And that's what started the journey of all these different books, courses, that kind of thing. And up until that point, when Kelvin came into the gym, I was doing the gym stuff on one side, and then I was doing what I would call the abundant life blueprint, this other stuff, the more spiritual, God related stuff on the other side, on the side. I wasn't really mixing them. And when Kelvin came in, he was the first one to really to go through both of them together. But we really started to combine things. And really, I would say one of the biggest secrets to what we did with Kelvin, why he got such result, is we worked from the inside out. We worked from the inside out because you're a three-part being, your spirit, your soul, your physical body. What I've seen a lot is you get a lot of people that do a good job with their nutrition, their exercise, maybe even medically. Like you said, you threw the kitchen sink at it, chiropractic, physical therapy, you know, all the stuff. And all those things are good. They all have their place. But you got to realize you're much bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. There's a lot going on in the spiritual and the mental and the emotional realms. And when we start working from the inside out, we get this flow of what God put within you, his power that he put within you, flowing through you in your body. And then we combine it with those other things. That's where we started to see the results. But I don't know if you want to touch on that anymore or the impact of working from the inside out.
Very much so, Don. And I want to reemphasize too that as much as I like this book, it was the biblical truths that Dan talks about in his book that were making the difference. It wasn't Dan's words. It wasn't Dan, in all of his 20 years of wisdom. It was how God combined all of that into a book form, and he used the scriptures to guide it.
Yeah.
And, I know other people, they may look and go, okay, but, I have a little disclaimer because, I came in, I did this, and I put some work into it, and God was so gracious.
Yeah.
And he's continually done that to me in my body. He's continued to, and part of that thing Dan was talking about, I really latched onto it. And I was looking at multiple scriptures every single day. And this one just resonated with me. And I'm going to share it with you, but it comes from Psalms, and it's in 103, and it's 1 through 5. And it says, Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. There's that inside. Holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all of his benefits, who forgives all of your iniquities, heals all of your diseases, redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, and who satisfies you with good so that your youth is renewed like the eagle. And so I was around 60, 59 to 60 when I met Dan. I remember, doing a little benching when we were working out, and I think I was able to crank out about 200 pounds. And here I am, going to be 67 in December. And just recently, I did a 1 rep max of 235. And when I turn 70, I fully expect to be stronger at 70 than I am now. And I was then. I'm walking on that promise. I'm living it. I put it on the inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many more scriptures, but that was kind of my rock. That was my stronghold.
Yeah.
That I could stand in the promise.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up, I studied, I did, search things out. But I had been doing that for years without God, and it didn't get me very far. It got me confused, is where it got me. That's where it got me because I had been searching, I had been studying, I had been getting mentored. And all it did was make me get more confused because none of the experts agreed on anything. And it was when I began to use the Bible as a filter for truth that made a huge difference for me. But like I said, I had been trying to do it on my own without God. It wasn't working. It was God teaching me and training me that made the difference. That's what made the difference. And, Kelvin put in the work too. He put in the work. We were training in the gym 2 to 3 days a week, most weeks. I think 2 most weeks. He's working on the things outside of the gym, though. We're working on gratitude. We're working on his imagination. We're working on things outside of the gym as well. Now, one thing I do want to touch on is, I'll be totally honest, the beginning of this book is not the easiest to read. It's kind of complicated. It's kind of technical. If you wanted to, you could just skip past that and go right into the practical parts and start applying some things right away for, your sleep, your energy, your fitness, your nutrition. You could start applying some of those things. But I think if you'll go in and you kind of just make the commitment to read through the technical parts, it'll make a big difference because it takes a little bit. Like I said, it took me 20 years to kind of get to that place of understanding some of that stuff. Um, and it's very technical. It's out of everything we teach, as I was telling Kelvin, it's the hardest thing for me to communicate. And so there's some technical components in there. But I think if you'll take the time to go through it, it'll make a big difference.
I do. And I'm actually rereading it again right now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's sort of like anything else. God just keeps bringing more and more things to light.
Hmm.
But yeah, we're glad you joined us today. I hope this has given you an insight. It's something that's passionate between the two of us. This book has just been a rock for me to reference and things like that. So daily I'm in my Bible, you know. I'm not that is my rock.
Yeah.
But this has just been Dan's vision and just things that he was able to put into practical verbiage, break it down and understand it. And he touched on imagination. And I remember the first time he ever told me that was a gift from God. And this is one thing I'll leave you with today. Sometimes our imagination doesn't always play out the truth if we think about it. So how do we start somewhere in some of our imagination? Start having it play the truth. Doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes you got to get in a still small corner of your room to kind of dwell on it a little bit and to rehearse that and tell it the truth. But it does boil up from the inside out when you start lassoing that imagination and putting it and facing it towards Jesus
Hmm.
instead of letting it run wild.
Yeah, the imagination, as you said, it's an amazing gift from God. I think you can use it to dream and plan and envision with God, or you can use it to envision worst case scenarios and some health issue taking you down, or play out all kinds of different stories in your mind. It is truly a gift from God, but we have to learn how to use it the way He intended us to, the way He designed us to. Um, and taking back, the Bible talks about casting down imaginations that don't align, with God's ways and His truth. And learning how to do that is a really, really important part of your health, I believe. Um, it's important for every area of life. Yeah, but really important, really important. But Kelvin, I appreciate you coming on today.
And
It's been this
likewise,
is this has been fun. I always have fun.
can you tell them where they could locate us at if they want to hear more and follow us?
Yeah, if you'd like to learn more about cracking Heaven's Code or any of our programs, we got a coaching program where we go through this with people. Uh, AbundantLifeTrainingCenter.com. You can find the book there. You can find more about our programs and things that we've got there. I think it'll be a tremendous blessing for you if for the people that actually do it. You got to read it and you got to actually put it into practice to get the most out of it. And so I think if you're somebody that will do that, it will make a difference for you. So
Dan, I'll leave them with one thing. See, I imagine myself now being stronger at 70.
that's right.
And, and when I look around me, I see people that imagine something a whole lot different than I do.
Yeah. But I would say too, you didn't just imagine it once. You've been building that picture on the inside of you. And the
Mhm.
stronger that picture gets, the more it begins to play out.
And the more I throw scripture at my imagination, the stronger it gets.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Well, thank y'all for joining us today.
Yep. Thank you guys. We'll be back next week with another round.
Okay.
All
Be
right.
blessed. Have a good weekend.
Yep.